Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us once again for another edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show once again. Up on the fire danger map, cloudy or cooler conditions, a little bit of moisture here, especially out of the upper Yukon Valley, really eliminated the extreme fire danger now off the chart. Still quite an area of high to very high fire danger, but they had generally 1/10 of an inch of precipitation or less through this area here, and a little bit heavier down a little bit farther to the south there in areas, kind of hit and miss, anything up to 1/3 to maybe 1/2 an inch of precipitation falling again in the last 12 to 24 hour period through portions of the interior, of course with thunderstorms that are developing once again today. But anyway, still kind of a high fire danger area there in the central Copper River Basin. That's reduced as well, and north side of the Alaska Range not as bad as it was yesterday. Still have some high fire danger out in the Seward Peninsula, and improved here a little bit for the Noatak Valley and the western Brooks Range along mountains areas up to the north slope. And moving on to satellite imagery, can see another system, band of moisture here pushing eastward, and that's sliding some rain with it into the western areas of the western Arctic coast and eventually into the north slope, mostly just clouds, but more rain coming through. Now they kind of just fall apart as they move eastward there across the interior, with the stronger portion remaining up to the north off the coast. Lots of clouds out over the Bering Sea once again, and low clouds, fog here right up through the Bering Strait. There was some clearing there for Kotzebue Sound, the Seward Peninsula today, as well as Norton Sound. But clouds all the way down across the Pribilofs, right on down to the Aleutians. A few breaks as you get in toward the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay especially. And less rain today, still kind of showery and cloudy across Kodiak Island, but conditions will continue to improve there over the next over the next day, 12 to 24 hours. Then we have thunderstorms developing here over the interior once again, especially in this batch of clouds right through here. Had the most lightning strikes this afternoon, had a couple isolated ones by 3 p.m. down along the western Alaska Range and also over to the eastern Alaska Range as well. And we got upper level low coming across the Gulf of Alaska for the last several days, continuing its eastward track, and it's pushed a fair amount of rain, clouds today and across the entire southeast coast, anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch fell, depending on your location there, but just about everywhere getting precipitation. Heaviest in the central southern areas, well, about 4/10 of an inch or 4,500 fell at Juneau today during the 12-hour period, ending at 3 p.m. So pretty good rain across the entire southeast coast, and that extends back to the west here, Yakutat along the North Gulf Coast into the southern and eastern Seward Peninsula, then kind of cuts off some clearing here for Cook Inlet. Still kind of showery and cloudy, especially early on, but gradually improving there with that flow becoming more west-northwesterly across Kodiak Island off the Aleutian Range. Some decent sun breaks up the Susitna and Madawaska Valley today. Showers starting to develop over the Talkeetnas, and those could develop into a thunderstorm here over the next few hours or into early evening. Same thing back along the western Alaska Range. Had a couple of lightning strikes over the Nulato Hills as well. Otherwise, good sunshine here from the Seward Peninsula up across Selawik Valley into the Koyukuk and southern Brooks Range. And you pick up the clouds farther to the east and out in the Aleutians, kind of a flat area, high pressure starting to develop here and beginning to ridge northeastward. And this trough dropping southeastward there, it's going to continue to push eastward into the interior, and that'll turn the flow offshore here, especially for the downslope areas of the Alaska Range, which is anything east and south of the mountains there. So I'll start to clear it out here for southern Alaska and start seeing warmer temperatures once again, mid to maybe even upper 70s. Another system here crossing the Russian Far East kind of goes to pieces tonight as it pushes eastward. Not that it's that strong right now, but it just kind of falls apart. And so I just drew it in as a trough. So periods of light rain, fog, drizzle, that sort of thing, lower flying conditions, edging its way eastward toward the St. Lawrence Island area, Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula, and then kind of linking up with another weak system there on the western Arctic coast, the one we just saw on the satellite, pushes eastward and begins to fall apart as well. Otherwise, thermal trough in the interior. Thunderstorms will probably go the entire night and last into tomorrow morning here along this feature, and possibly even the western Alaska range as well. Otherwise, look for clearing skies with diminishing showers everywhere else around the state today. Still a pretty good shower threat there for Kodiak Island, but that's going to be improving definitely for the day tomorrow. North Gulf Coast starting to clear out. Rain continues here for the southern southeast coast as that system slowly moves eastward. Then that's going to be followed by a couple more troughs, kind of the another upper level feature, a weaker one back here hanging back to the west, and that's going to keep showers going there for, well, at least through tomorrow. Got another one crossing the area, be kind of either moderate showers or just a flat out rain for the southern southeast coast. Probably be lighter than what you saw today. More of a scattered shower condition up to the north with mostly cloudy skies. Clearing out, though, becoming partly and mostly sunny for the North Gulf Coast. Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, managed to sit in the valley early on in the afternoon, look for thunderstorms to develop. And this flow now from kind of south to north, so those thunderstorms that develop over the mountains will be heading southward. And we'll see how far they get southward. That's a good question. Could they get into northern Cook Inlet or the Manuska Valley? It's kind of hard to say. I have to wait and see. Otherwise, thunderstorms will be developing along the Alaska Range all the way down into northeast Bristol Bay. West-northwest flow, sunshine tomorrow, Kodiak Island, warmer temperatures, clearing out along the southwest coast, hopefully, after some low clouds and fog. Better chance of that up to the northeast there, remnants of a weak trough making it showery over the northwest coast. This system coming across moves to about here on Thursday with rain, more light rain and lower flying conditions. Marginal VFR definitely pushing into the northwest interior. Thunderstorms along the western Alaska Range, and also showers, the last one, although there's still some just to the west. So it'll be a pretty showery day, cloudy skies for the Panhandle, and a lot of isolated scattered thunderstorms over the eastern interior. And lows tonight, mid to upper 50s here from the upper Yukon Valley, right on down into the Kuskokwim Delta, and near or into the lower 40s for the Arctic coast, 50s everywhere else. Highs tomorrow, 60 to 70 for the southeast coast, 75 to 83 or 4 here up over the eastern interior, mid to upper 70s central interior, 70 to 75 or so for the Susitna Valley and Kenai Peninsula, and about the same for inland areas of Bristol Bay. Lows the following morning, mid to upper 50s, upper Yukon Valley and into the greater Fairbanks area. Mid 50s, Susitna Valley, south central Alaska, and 50s everywhere else except mid 40s for the Aleutians, lower 40s in the Arctic coast. Highs for Thursday afternoon, 75 to 83 here over the eastern interior. A little bit of a cool down, not about the same, 75 to 80, Susitna, Manuska Valley, even into the Kenai Peninsula. And could see some lower 80s there for the Copper River Basin, and mostly in the lower to mid 60s for the southeast coast. Looks like North Slope could see some 70-degree weather, otherwise right along the coastline, 45 to 55, and mid to upper 40s out over the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First flying weather graphic showing the usual IFR here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and kind of streaming in areas here into the western interior, up through the Bering Strait, northwest interior, or western Brooks Range, actually, to long mountains, eastward along the Arctic coast. Possible marginal VFR in areas there, mostly south side of the central and western Alaska Range, and as well as the Talkeetna, as otherwise VFR, Kodiak Island, North Gulf Coast. Marginal VFR for the Panhandle. Afternoon, northern Panhandle, VFR, south side, central and southern areas marginal. VFR across the Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin, right up through the 40-mile country into the upper Yukon Valley and probably to Arctic Village. Some marginal VFR, again, some moisture sliding southward here with the flow turning more north and northwest. So we got thunderstorms developing in here, and they'll be progressing southward throughout the day. Otherwise, less IFR out in the Bering Sea. Actually, some VFR showing up here. Looks like around the Kulski, south of the Pribilofs, and then IFR from Adak on out. And for Thursday, we've got IFR kind of pushing in across the Yukon Delta, but northern Seward Peninsula, Selawik Valley, northwest coast and interior, and the western central Arctic coast, VFR, IFR, eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, but VFR southward through the interior, and still some marginal VFR that's going to last overnight into Thursday morning there for the western Alaska range up to about Denali. VFR Kodiak, North Gulf Coast, northern Panhandle, marginal, some IFR along the eastern border, afternoon shaping up like this, marginal VFR kind of day for all of the southeast coast. Could see some VFR Heidelberg and maybe Annette, Metlakatla. Otherwise, VFR here, Gulf of Alaska again for Kodiak, and from Igigit, King Salmon, Dillingham, right on up across Cook Inlet there. Marginal VFR at Kuskokwim Valley. On out, you hit IFR along the coast. VFR northward to the central Arctic coast, across the North Slope, Lucians, Bering Sea, IFR. And the Tuvik and Adigan, VFR tomorrow for both passes, and Lake Clark and Merrill starting out marginal, and then moisture slipping down from the north, as well as developing convection going marginal VFR in the latter part of the afternoon into evening. And for rainy, same trend, same pattern, and windy VFR to marginal also. And Isabel, Mentasta VFR, as well as Tanita and Portage VFR, even for Portage, Chilkoot and White VFR. And for the freezing levels, 8,000 feet here right along the southeast coast. That upper level low pushing eastward, that cool pool here, 6,000 feet signifying about the center of that. That's sliding off to the east there, but extending back to the west here a little bit to a weaker center. 10,000 feet central interior, 6,000 feet approaching the western Arctic coast. And for icing, areas of mixed rime and mixed icing, mostly light, isolated moderate, here above 8,000 feet for the southeast coast. Also with the moisture and the convection, that'd be mixed, hopefully no clear, here coming southward along the western Alaska range from the central interior. Above about 7,000, maybe some light stuff there. Isolated moderate there for the western North Slope and Arctic coast. This area over here, that's going to come eastward in that westerly flow, probably will make landfall sometime anywhere from Thursday morning to Thursday evening, somewhere in that time period, and that'd be about the next shot that comes in that way. And at the jet stream, you can see the westerlies here coming across the Russian Far East and across Kamchatka, anywhere from 50 to 80 knots. Now, we'll be carrying that batch of icing I just spoke of eastward and moving in the Seward Peninsula, the Bering Strait and the northwest coast on Thursday. Otherwise, ridging here in the Bering Sea, actually pushing inland. That's going to start warming it up over southern Alaska, and for the 9,000 feet, 5 to 10 knot offshore flow here. Low center moves across the Panhandle. Westerlies still pretty brisk, 25 to 30 knots. So for 9,000 feet, that's not all that big a deal. Really light out over the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. 3,000 feet, even lighter, 5 to 15 knot winds, much of the Bering Sea. 5 knots for the Aleutians, interior 5 to 10. Turbulence shaping up like this. Northwesterlies, offshore flow here, so could see some light to isolated moderate shocks, especially for small aircraft. Kodiak Island, the Aleutian Range, Kamishak Bay, on up across the southern Alaska range, as well as that storm cutting in here, light to isolated moderate shock there for the southern Panhandle as well. Otherwise, everywhere else icing free. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the sea ice conditions and marine forecasts.
Leatherbacks are the largest turtles on Earth, growing up to 7 feet long and weighing more than 2,000 pounds. These sea turtles are among the most highly migratory animals on Earth, some traveling up to 10,000 miles a year between their nesting and feeding grounds. Prevalent in every ocean except the Arctic and Antarctic, the species overall is declining, more so in the Pacific. In the eastern Pacific, the Mexican population was once thought to be the largest in the world and has experienced an alarming decline.
This trajectory of decline that we've seen and actually collapse, we're talking about only 20 or 30 turtles nesting every year, where thousands used to just 40 years ago. That's the kind of dramatic decline.
The western Pacific population has been declining steadily, and it's particularly critical to act now before it collapses, while there are enough turtles in nests to respond to conservation measures. But threats to all leatherbacks in the Pacific need to be addressed.
The top threats to populations are uncontrolled coastal development, all the bad stuff on the nesting beaches, egg harvest, poaching of the females, predation on the eggs by dogs and pigs. Deforestation makes the sand too warm and dry and the eggs don't hatch. Another one is incidental capture in fishing gear. During their vast migrations, they get caught in fishing gear throughout the Pacific. And finally, marine debris, which the leatherbacks mistake for their favorite food, jellyfish, and they choke on those.
Protecting leatherbacks in U.S. waters alone is not enough to ensure the continued existence of the species. The highly migratory nature of Pacific leatherbacks requires cooperation and international collaboration. NOAA is focusing on partnerships with Mexico, Central America, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands in the Pacific.
Our action plan promotes a holistic recovery strategy that addresses all the sources of mortality. So that's basically ensuring that the remaining nesting sites are protected. And the nests produce as many hatchlings as possible. And then secondly, in tandem with that is reducing the fisheries-related mortalities. We're working with international partners to incentivize community participation on the nesting beach conservation and developing alternative livelihood programs that wean communities off leatherback resources and introduce alternative methods for food and income. Recovery is going to take a long time, on the order of 20 to 30 years at least, before we see some of these actions bear fruit. But here in the US, we can all help leatherbacks by making seafood choices, for instance, that support sustainable fishing practices. And beachgoers can certainly do their part by keeping our oceans clean of plastic debris, picking up marine litter, particularly plastic bags.
Together with our partners, we are strengthening protection and conservation efforts to ensure a future for leatherbacks, helping them to survive and once again thrive in the waters of the Pacific Ocean.
For over 40 years, NOAA scientists have been collecting data and piecing together the story of the gray whale. Each year, new discoveries are made, revealing the secrets of this ancient traveler. With the northeastern Pacific population recovered, leading scientists from the NOAA Southwest Fisheries Science Center continue their research efforts to help save the western population from extinction. The most effective way to identify individuals and count the population is to photograph them from the surface. Using the gray whale's distinctive markings and gray spots caused by parasites on their skin, scientists document these characteristics to identify individuals.
So we're able to track migratory pathways and corridors by the simple use of photo identification. There are other ways to do that as well, biopsy sampling and genetics.
And from the air.
Aerial photography is one way you can study animals based on their size and shape. So you can learn a lot about nutritive and reproductive condition of whales just by measuring their size and shape from vertical aerial photographs.
You can also put satellite transmitters on them and track them remotely. You put the transmitter on and let them go, and you watch them move across the Pacific or down to China or wherever it might be.
To further learn and discover where these great sojourners swim, the team of researchers traveled to Russia and set up camp on Sakhalin Island.
The main focus of our research while we were on Sakhalin was to collect photo identification. If it was a whale that we had not collected a genetic sample from previously, we would also attempt to collect a sample from the whales.
Whereas whales are endowed with natural insulation, Their human observers must gear up to brave the cold in order to study these marine giants up close.
We're typically only able to work about 1/3 of the time that we're there, and that's mostly due to this fog that just invades the area and sits sometimes for weeks on end. So it can be very challenging to try and do field work in this site.
Recently, 2 whales from the western population surprised scientists by migrating across the Pacific to the waters of California and Mexico.
It's a really fun finding. It's added another piece to the puzzle that we didn't previously know about. And I would have to say that it's opened up more questions than we had before.
Research scientists from Japan, Russia, and the United States share images of animals they've spotted.
We take a photograph of an individual off of Sakhalin Island, and we get a phone call from Japanese scientists, and they say, hey, guess what? We've got a picture of a gray whale in Japan. We say, can you send it to us? We'd love to try and match it. They'll send us the picture, we'll compare it to our catalog, and they'll say, hey, we've got a match from Sakhalin to Japan.
Unlike many species of whales that still remain on the endangered species list, the eastern Pacific gray whale, once on the brink of extinction, now numbers about 20,000 individuals. Recovery efforts that started 40 years ago and the ongoing research and monitoring by NOAA scientists have contributed to the conservation of the gray whales. Together, with legal protection and public education, scientists are playing their part to ensure the survival of this magnificent migratory animal.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Taking a look at today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot of difference from the last several days. Some ice right down to the central Arctic coast around Point Barrow, and then kind of back off to the west-northwest. And then we still have this heavier area of ice along and just north of the barrier islands there, and then kind of an extensive area of much thinner ice here of varying degrees on up to the north from that, and no big changes again expected for the next 5 days. And coastal water forecast looking at west winds 20 knots there for the southern southeast coast for Wednesday afternoon. Southwest 15 for Clarence Strait. Seas running 7 to 8 feet with those 20-knot winds. Lighter winds, less sea heights up to the north, 5 to 6 foot seas on west-northwest winds at 15. Lynn Canal northwest at 10, southwest 10. Pretty light winds there for the central and northern inside waters. And for Thursday, south 15 for Lynn Canal in the afternoon, variable to south 10 for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait, south 15, seas 3 feet, west winds 15 knots with 8 foot seas. So we've got small craft advisories on the southern coast of the Panhandle and light west winds on the north end. And for Cook Inlet tomorrow, south to southwest at about 10 knots, west 20 Kamishak Bay, same thing for the Barrens, west 20 knots, seas 5 feet. 15-knot westerlies for the North Gulf Coast with seas at 4 feet, and Prince William Sound winds out of the west only at 10 knots. Those will pick up to about 15 knots on Thursday, and the eastern North Gulf Coast comes down variable to southwest at 10, west 15 for the western coast zone there, and jump up to 30 knots for the Barren Islands west. From a westerly direction, that extends all the way back into Kamishak Bay, the Augustine Island Bay. Anywhere for Cook Inlet, west to southwest at 10 with 3 foot seas. East side of Kodiak Island, a little breezy tomorrow, northwest 25 for those zones, and then west at 20, Shelikof Strait, west 20 for Bristol Bay, and west 20 from Sitkinak to Cape Saratchev, and then northwest 20 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. And for Thursday, small craft advisories, west 25 knots, Shelikof Strait, all the marine areas, Kodiak Island, and northwest 25, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, west-northwest at 20 across the peninsula with seas running 6 feet and 6 foot seas with west winds at 20 knots for Bristol Bay. Western Aleutians, say west of Kiska to Shemya, south at 15, and then lighter winds northwest at 10 knots from Mchitka, across Dadak, Atka, northwest 10 to 15 there, getting into that Akun and Unmac Island and Unalaska Island, northwest 20 with 5 to 6 foot seas. Thursday, west-northwest at 20 for Unalaska Island. Unmac Island, more of a west-southwest, 10 to 15 kind of wind day there. And the central Aleutians, 10 to 15 knots, southwesterlies for Adak and Atka, 15 knots, and then kicks up to 20 knots there from Amchitka all the way out to Shemya. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northwest at 20, west 15. North of Nunivak Island, right up across St. Lawrence Island, including Norton Sound. Southwest 25, the only area with small craft advisories around St. Matthew Island, west at 20 for the Pribilofs. Outlook for Thursday, those 25-knot winds continue for St. Matthew Island. Otherwise, 20-knot winds here for the Pribilofs. And along the coast, southwest 20, St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound with 7-foot seas. And for the area from Wales up to Cape Thompson, light northerlies at 10 knots, and then Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, northeast 15, and then swings around to the southwest, 10 knots there for the western and central coast, north to northwest at 15 for the eastern coast. Outlook for Thursday, easterlies at 15 there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, turning southeast toward the western coast, and southeast at 10, pretty light on the west side, and from Cape Beaufort to Wales, southerlies at 15 knots. For tonight again, showers continue Kodiak Island, but should start tapering off. Look for some clearing here over the southwest interior. Thunderstorms persisting through much of the night here, especially in these two locations, central interior and down along the Alaska Range. Look for partly cloudy skies, southern Alaska, and just some light rain on the western Arctic coast and more rain for the southern panhandle. But another batch of moisture comes in, so you have some more rain, but it'll be lighter in nature and a little more showery up to the north and not so much rain. Look for clearing skies, increasing sunshine, increasing temperatures. Kodiak Island, south central Alaska, thunderstorms possibly drifting down to northern Cook Inlet tomorrow evening, and otherwise same thing over the eastern interior. And the outlook for Thursday, sunny in some areas and
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.